So you'd like to learn how to solder. It's not difficult. You need some basic equipment. You need a soldering iron. There's a nice cheap one. Or you can get an Antex. They come in various sizes. Or you could go for a Weller. This is my preferred one because I use it all day, every day. You're also going to need somewhere to put your hot soldering iron. You can use a stand, and they come in various shapes and sizes. Here's mine. Or you can use one of these little metal clips that sometimes come with the soldering iron. You just bend that up, and then the soldering iron rests. And the idea is just to keep the hot tip away from anything that might get burnt. On the stands, such as this one, you'll see there's a little sponge. That's bone dry. Got a cup and some water, just dip it in, and that's absolutely soaking. You can see. And all I'm going to do is squeeze that as hard as I can with one hand, get rid of the drips, and that's perfectly acceptable. Why is there a sponge there? Well, the tip gets quite dirty. This one's cold, thankfully. And what we do is once it's hot, we're going to just wipe the excess solder off. I'm going to try it with the lens at this distance, but I think we're probably going to have to do a close-up. The reason I use this iron is it heats up really quite quickly. The temperature I'm aiming for is about 330 degrees. And that should be up to temperature now. So I can have a wipe and take a little of my solder and re-tin the tip. Now re-tinning, all it means is putting a layer of solder onto the business end of your soldering iron. It prevents corrosion and allows proper heat transfer. And I'll wipe off the excess. It doesn't matter how many times you do that. Once or twice is enough. It's the only time you'll actually touch solder onto the tip of the iron. The rest of the time you're using the heat of the iron to warm up whatever's going to be soldered, whether it's two wires or a circuit into a board. And when you're not using it, into the stand or onto your rest, just to prevent anything from getting burnt. Put that to one side. The other pieces of equipment you're going to need to do this job are some solder. This one's lead free, so is this one. Or we can get the leaded flavour. I say flavour, but obviously don't put it in your mouth because it's poisonous. And for young solderers, I would suggest that you stay away from the leaded. If you've been playing with electronics and lead for years, it probably won't make any difference to you now. It also comes in these little tubes which are quite handy because you can start it off, poke it through the lid, and then you've got solder as you need it and where you need it. It's also very useful for holding. So what else are you going to need? Well, you're going to need some cutters. It's quite a good pair, but they don't have to be that good. The only thing you need to make sure of is that the back is flat, so you can get close up when you're doing the cutting. Okay, that's it. Let's do some soldering. This is a spool I've already started using, and all I'm going to do is pull off enough to do the job. It snaps real easy. Wind it around my fingers and leave myself a free end. As you can see, this soldering iron tip is really quite grotty, so we need to clean that up before we start. So I'm going to turn it on and let it heat up. Shouldn't take too long. Okay, the iron's up to temperature and I've got my damp sponge, and all I'm going to do is stroke it gently over the top, backwards and forwards, and see how much cleaner that looks. That's good. Then we're going to put a little blob of solder on there just to tin it and wipe off the excess. Our iron's good to go. So let's go ahead and put one of the resistors in. Poke it through the holes. There we go. We've got two techniques. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put two in and show you both techniques. Just move the iron out of the way. Now the first thing we can do is we can cut off the wire for that resistor just above where it needs to be. Clean the tip, wipe it on the sponge, and then the heat needs to be applied to the joint and then solder added like so, and the other side, and that's perfectly acceptable. The other way, which I'll show you with this one, we leave the wires at full length. Again, we add heat, and if you notice my tip is touching the resistor wire and the pad, so that when I put my solder in, it meets and heats both together. So heat the pad and the wire, and I'm putting quite a bit of pressure on. Add my solder, and then if I lift my soldering iron up the stem, we get a nice neat joint. Then afterwards, cut the wires.